All right, welcome to Raising Funds for World Domination, Day 69. Where's our Plex? 64 sends a wave. On the circuit says one more day. And Sam sends a wave. All right, so as for updates, there's no updates really on anything here except for today I worked on a new video. I was hoping to maybe have it out today, but it's just the editing. I got kind of bogged down on it, but it's all the filming's done. The filming is pretty easy, but there's a bunch of stuff to edit on it, so that'll be out soon. Got my phone, appears satellite messaging works. Stockpile of antibiotics are in the mail. Must qualify as a prepper now. And stockpile of antibiotics. Are you preparing for something that I should know about? I guess maybe World War III, I guess. I wasn't aware you could even stockpile antibiotics. I assume you could probably get a prescription. All right. So today we'll continue with working on the block mining simulation game. So for the past so I don't know how many well, I guess since 27th, I've been working on some migration work. So I think this runs. I think last night I left off that I broke some unit tests, and then so I'll try to get the unit tests working again. Okay, the game runs, doesn't crash. And let me run unit tests. Yeah, we got some compile errors. Robert is back. I never left. I've been on every day for 69 days. Today is a blessed day. That's good. And you're number 1 in the chat. You've been blessed by the algorithm. '69. It is in fact day 69 of the series. Why is that a compiler error? Cannot find symbol. Oh, it's spelled wrong. That's why. Must have done a regular expression replace in here. I'll be right back in a sec. All right, we got an exception. Good morning. I guess it is. It's morning somewhere. It's 10:19 here. PM. I should have been running these tests incrementally. Noticing you like to code with dim lights as well. Great minds think alike. I think it's got a nice aesthetic for the streams. So that's I like the aesthetic as well, but I also think it works well for just add a little bit of color to the content. All right, the test that is failing is this one. That might actually just be a balance check. That's fine, because the coordinate I'm checking if the coordinate is in the QWhite address, but it's the old version. Nice. We've got our first super chat. 69. Thanks for the $6.96. Very on theme. That must be I wish it would show people's full names so I could actually give credit. I think it's Brendan Fraser. That's what I'm gonna imagine. That's what my internal large language model says. Is the rest of your name. Yes, excellent. Yeah, because I recognize the name and icon. All right, that did not fix the issue. I guess I also need that here. So that's one of the reasons why I can't really just do blanket find and replace. Rick Brown, James says 69. Get another exception. dim lights are relaxing. Yeah, it's I like the aesthetic personally. All right, this is complaining about actually that does make sense that should not be. That is not contained in here. Bruh, someone has duplicate JVM memory args in our prod for God knows how long, costing 5 outages. Geniuses. Duplicate JVM memory args. So I guess they specified how much memory the JVM should have, but it was there twice. And probably one of them was like much smaller. And so it always took the first one or something. That's kind of that's unfortunate. I guess I'm not sure what it does in that case. If it doesn't like complain or warn you. First memory was in bits, second in megs. Causing weird garbage collection. Nice. I guess if it doesn't complain when you start it or show up in logs, it's that kind of thing. It's kind of thing it's kind of a mistake that's easy to make, to have duplicate JVM args. Was it a different flag or a different syntax for the specification in bits and megs? But that's part of the issue. IDK, one of those things where you just get handed an entire deployment with 2 hours of knowledge transfer, and they say good luck. Excellent. see. So yeah, so the duplicate JVM memory arcs. Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure you can get all kinds of weird stuff like that. The worst is like weird behavior that only happens in production. Okay, I think that will fix it. Let's hope that fixes everything. What was your favorite job you had over your career? The job I did at NVIDIA, that was pretty good. I guess maybe you could probably break it up into like, there's maybe a different answer depending on what you're optimizing for. The job I did at NVIDIA, for that project, I had kind of the it was a very like pure. It was like it was a web development project, and I was the only one working on it, and I had like the full support and backing of my manager to just like go nuts and go and like completely rewrite this thing in the way that I envisioned it, and I was able to, rebuild this test result website, my own image, and I made it a lot faster. And I think I actually did some. I contributed something that actually was made a positive impact for the team, or for the other people who were consuming the test results. Now, on the other hand, the in terms of like social satisfaction or any kind of I don't know, just the engagement of working there. Like at that job, I came to my cubicle, I worked 9 to 5, and then I went home. And in the previous intern, there was another intern there while I worked there, and apparently that intern, his internship ended and he left the company for 2 weeks, and no one noticed that the intern had like ended their job and like done the last day, and like because no one even like checked in on him or anything. Now, in terms of social satisfaction, the first place I worked at, which was like a really small startup, that one I think had way more. There's way more like social engagement, and I got to interact with the founders a lot, and probably my first internship at Amazon, we actually had lunch together as a team for a little while, and then that kind of went away. And then the second term, I think, basically everyone would like hide from each other because everyone was on constant crunch time. So I guess depending on what you like are optimizing for, you could put the favorite on different places. Honorable Bunny says, "Looking good, Robert." Thank you. One is XMX 6969K. Are those the real values that were used? Oh, interesting. Okay, one was specified in Megs in the other. So interesting. So does it allow you to start the JVM if you like specify it twice and they're not the same? I kind of blame the JVM for even starting that way. Like it should detect that case and complain to you. I wish they were right next to each other. Nice. Yeah, maybe someone who just isn't familiar with it. It starts. Huh. That's interesting. I wonder which value it uses. On the circuit it says W, and Plummy says what are those dinosaurs? A talkative dinosaur. What is that even? It's like a confused looking dinosaur. A really happy talkative. It's not really a dinosaur. What was the stack you were working with? And NVIDIA. So that was one of those jobs where I got hired as the role I applied for was like C++ kernel developer or something, and I interviewed for the job, and they're like, yeah, so yeah, about that C++ job, whatever. But the manager looked at your resume and he really wants you to do some web development, because I guess they were in a very sore need at the time. I think the main issue was the page was loading really slow, and they wanted to speed it up. And then I think I like for the original objective they set for me, I finished that within like 2 weeks. So then I just spent the rest of the 4 months, or the next 3.5 months, just optimizing it and making it better. I didn't answer the question. So it was in PHP. The website was written in PHP, and it was already written in PHP. So when I rewrote it, I also rewrote it in PHP to keep it similar. But it was basically a total rewrite. Botched copy and paste. Yeah, I guess that those arguments are kind of like, they're very cryptic looking, the way you specify your arguments to the JVM. So I guess it's easy to overlook. Stay freaky out there. All right, I'll try. All right, I have fixed key data structure. Now let's continue on with demigration. Actually, let's go one at a time. Actually, let's do this. Is it okay if I take your game and try to get it to run on Mac OS? Sure, if you want. I guess to be compliant with the license, you can The license includes a trial version. You can try it for 30 days without paying. $30 is hard, but a license is a license. Yeah, I think 30 days is a decent amount of time to make your purchasing decision, and it's only $1, and you get a license to play it forever, including all future versions. Or I guess technically it's if you go by to the letter of the license, it's I think it requires something greater than $1. So $1 plus epsilon. Yep. So any and it can be through any purchase method. So you can do a super chat if you're a channel member, or if you've ever given me money for anything, including any past Kickstarters that I did. Basically $3. That's one plus epsilon. $3.50. Is $1 even $1 anymore? Not really, not with inflation. What's driving to make this particular game? Historically, I have, well, if you want to look up my history, you can watch my videos on consulting. I've come to the conclusion, originally I thought that, building my own piece of software and trying to sell it is kind of an insane idea. And I mean, it is, but I've recently, with the last couple of years of my consulting interactions, I've come to the conclusion that trying to bootstrap a business the old way is much less realistic than I thought, and actually just trying to build my own piece of software and sell it is more realistic. There's a few reasons for, like, I think a game is a concept that you can, it's not boring. Like in a piece of accounting software, it has to be very good accounting software, but for a game, like lots of people are interested in games. People are interested in playing games. Lots of people are interested in developing games. Games are also a very good substrate for teaching things about programming and like algorithmic concepts, and it's a good like playground for software development, which is kind of what I like to focus on anyway. Things around education. The terminal-based aspect makes sense because number one, there's not a lot of there's not really many terminal-based games out there, so I think developing something like this and developing a game in a constrained environment is itself an interesting exercise, and it's, I think, actually kind of unique. So there's that, and then also most of my audience that I've gained is from the shorts on Linux commands and stuff like that. So command line, like putting all those things together, I think it makes sense to pursue this avenue. And I also I've also come to the conclusion more that it's not just about the piece of software you're building right now. In the 1990s, you could probably just build a piece of software and like sell it on a floppy disk or something. But nowadays, I think that a lot of the revenue is actually like the long-term revenue is extracted from like the process of building something. Like a lot of the super chats, a lot of the revenue I'm getting is from like super chats from just people who stop by and they're kind of interested in what I'm doing. They're not necessarily like paying the $1 fee for the game. Do you have a good Canada Day? I think so. I actually when was Canada Day? Was it yesterday or today? It must have been yesterday because the stores were all closed when I tried to go there. Trying to transition from full stack to a career that's Linux C heavy. Being in Systems OS, Carl Dev. Any advice where to start the self-learning journey and great projects to make along the way? Trying to transition from full stack to a career that's Linux C heavy. I guess it depends on if you're interested in like 9 to 5 work. I would actually say it might make sense to like some of the biggest job security moving forward may actually be in embedded systems. So if you, I mean, this is also it's a pretty big pivot. I mean, it's. I'm hesitant to give advice on topics like this because it's so easy to like, waste years of your life studying something that you don't use. But learning a bit about like get your hands on like some stepper motors or like simple devices and start writing some like actual embedded C programs. And actually, this doesn't take that much time or money. Do some simple projects with Arduino. So run some like stepper motors with an Arduino, or I guess that you can use Arduinos. Learn how to program an Arduino, and like do a start it with like a blink, how to blink an LED on an Arduino. You can Google that. The equivalent of Hello World in the embedded systems world is LED blink. So yeah, blinking LED on an Arduino, or a Raspberry Pi Pico, and start learning a bit about just like the very bare bones embedded stuff, because with the onslaught of AI code generation, I think that's really going to, like, assuming that AI code generation replaces all software developers or something, I think it's going to come for the high level, high stack web development. So like TypeScript stuff, all the JavaScript garbage, because that's so abstract, and it's also the information that a large language model needs to automate that. It is more that it's debatable whether it could, but that information is more accessible to the large language model for those languages like React and stuff like that, because it's so high in the stack. Whereas for embedded systems, a lot of the information you need, like the model context protocol and stuff like that, it's not going to work as well for like an Arduino, because for an actual, when you're programming an embedded device, a lot of times you'll have to like you flash it, and then you physically have to touch the power button with your finger, because that's necessary to like reset the board, and you have to use your eyeball to look at the LED to see that the LED is blinking. Now you could automate that with a AI with a camera and stuff like that, but the point is like these things that require physically interfacing with the world, those are going to be some of the last things to automate. Now theoretically you can automate them, but they're still manual processes. They're going to be done for at least years before we fully automate this stuff. Yeah, but that's kind of like the extreme way to go. But I would say even if you just like learn a bit about how to program an Arduino and stuff, that would actually put you pretty close to like kernel devs, OS kernel dev stuff, because a lot of that is it relies on like physical knowledge, and you could like look up the schematics of the hardware bugs and stuff for whatever you're doing. Ever seen any of your is that a pair of pants? Found this live organically. I guess the YouTube algorithm is it's decided that you like my live content. I guess I've been doing live streaming enough now that it's probably figuring out like what type of person would actually like this. I've been noticing more people drop in, and they're like, what is this? What's the point of this live stream? And then I explain it, and I kind of have I don't really explain it great, and I kind of half expect people like, oh, that's like, that's not interesting. See you later. But more and more people are like, wow, that is so cool. I'm so glad that YouTube recommended this. Oh, shorts. That makes sense. Heck yeah, I agree with your reasoning on the game. If the quacks can make a living, why not folks who can at least build something? Yeah, there's less people just like building stuff. It almost seems like it's increasingly becoming like a criminal activity to become an entrepreneur these days. There's just there's so few entrepreneurs, and more of them are like going to venture capital, chasing like the idea of getting bought out by Instagram or something. Which I don't have anything against that, but one issue I have with one problem I see with that is that a lot of people they'll raise venture capital, and the demands of venture capital are like so aggressive and then insane, and often like sometimes they're like anti-competitive, so they basically they'll invest in the company to like prevent it from being successful because they want a competitor to be successful, or it's like they'll invest in it just so they can get access to the data. And there's a lot of lots of weird ways that, I mean, that's part of it is related to issues with financialization in the economy, and nowadays it's vibe coding. Yeah, I think vibe coding is not going to work for embedded systems. You're still going to need like a person to actually to drive it forward. This thing needs... Well, actually... Yeah, that should be fine. Even Microsoft putting out vibe coding videos on their YouTube. Wow. I'll have to go watch some of those. See what they're suggesting. Definitely not for embedded. Yeah, there's, I mean, I'm sure people will make attempts at that, but it's going to take a while. Like everything in, pure web and command line, it can be like serialized easily, but even if we do automate embedded systems programming, you're going to need like a video feed. Like for the AI to fully automate it, you're going to need a video feed of like whatever the embedded system itself is doing. And you're going to need like a robot to maybe, push the reset button or turn the board over or I mean, these other kinds of issues like making sure that the wire is connected. Like that's the thing. You'll try to like maybe try to flash stuff and then it says it failed, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, the wire fell out of the connector, and you have to like physically just plug it back in. Because when you have like 20 jumper wires or something, they can come apart on you. Or like voltages, so sometimes you physically break a thing. You accidentally you set something, you put hit it with a screwdriver, and then you short something out, and then the board is permanently damaged. So you have to like start probing onto it with a multimeter to figure out that, oh, this the board is physically damaged. You have to get a new board. Eli had a video today about MS mandating AI usage at work. Yeah, I can believe that. I think right now, I think that's basically the start of like the second order of learning effect. Like right now, AI can learn off of all the books that are ever written, and that's like that's trained everything up quite fast. And now now we need people to write more books, but I think the second order, more rapid learning, is going to be learning off of people, of real human interactions with AI. So at scale, if you just have like 100 million interactions of a person struggling to write code with an AI, you can use that. You can take the script, the transcript from a large language model interaction, and then feed that into a large language model. And so in theory, that should make the next iteration of large language models even more smart. And it'll accelerate us toward general AI. Division by 0. That makes sense, I guess. Did you hear what the new housing minister said? We must ensure people's assets are protected. Yeah, I've heard them say a few things. I don't know if it's necessarily recent. They've kind of repeated for a while now that housing prices can't go down. I don't know. I think fundamentally, there's only so much juice you can squeeze out of the system. Like they've a lot of the housing price appreciation is they created all these. Assuming you're talking about here in Canada, like they created all these things to increase demand, like making it easier to get the credit, then make it so you can tap into your retirement funds, and then like not prosecuting fraud for mortgage frauds and stuff. Of course, all that's going to squeeze the price higher, but like at some point, if people are just not making a lot of money, like there's a lot of people who are like in the top 10% income of the country saying like they're never going to own a home because it's out of reach. And then the housing crisis, it's causing all these other second order productivity effects, like I've talked about it at length in my videos about. I'm supposedly, one would think I'm a highly qualified professional. I got my degree in software engineering, worked at big tech companies and stuff like that, and then came back here to start my business. But because housing is so crazy, like I'm putting all my time and expertise into fighting this rent eviction process, which is like that doesn't make GDP go up. Doesn't make it so I can pay more to the tax base and stuff. And I'm just one story out of so many. And at some point, and of course, and then we have high immigration to keep wages down. So if people just can't produce enough money to pay the rents and the mortgages and stuff like that, eventually the system is going to break. And I think it's kind of starting to break now. Most likely they will, like to try and stick to that. What they can do is they can print more money, which will, like on paper, they can make housing prices go up as much as they want forever, no matter what, even if the economy tanks. It's just that we'll become like Zimbabwe or something. And that is a possible outcome because what the banks do not want is they don't want the price to go below a certain value, because then they would have to call the loans. So as long as the line goes up, even if the currency gets devalued, and I think they've signaled that before, that their plan is basically they're going to keep the price high, but they're going to make the value of currency lower. So anyone who has like a lot of savings and cash is probably going to get screwed. But it's hard to say if we do have a crash, if we do have like, there's a whole bunch of wild cards. You know, I heard some other people talking about the situation with bonds. So in order to print more money and go into more debt, the government has to sell the debt to someone. And if we get to, like if the country gets bad enough, and if our debt situation gets bad enough, the hedge funds, which are the counterparty that actually buys our debt, if they stop buying the debt because they're like, yeah, this looks kind of sketchy, what'll happen is that'll push up interest rates, and then it'll be much harder for the government to continue to go into debt. Because they can't issue the debt if no one is going to buy if no one's going to be the counterparty of it. I mean, this is like large scale macroeconomic stuff, so take it with a grain of salt. But there may be one forcing function might be the hedge funds that buy our debt. As a landlord, I can see that removing the ability to have an LLC for shelter will force better treatment of people. I think that's there's a lot of people say like corporations shouldn't own property, and in my opinion, I think it's kind of banning corporate landlords is kind of missing the point. I think there's like ultimately, like especially for large, like if you have like a set of towers or something, or like someplace in downtown Toronto that's renting, you can't really have an individual renting that. It's going to have to be they're going to have to run an actual professional corporate structure. So that kind of opens the door to like a legitimate use case for it. And there's other stuff like, if the property's bought on finance, you're going to need like official looking papers and stuff like that. And for the mortgage agreement, you need to like isolate liability. So it really makes sense for the mortgage to be issued in relation to a corporation and stuff. So I think there's a lot of other things like you could stipulate stuff like the board of directors, the majority shareholders of the corporation have to be or you could say like the shares have to be 100% owned by Canadian citizens or something like that. That would be one other thing to do, which I'm pretty sure that's probably not the case at the moment. And then, I mean, with my experience with the tenant board, we're going on to the fourth hearing at the tenant board for this rent eviction case. This landlord has already lost a bunch of his cases at other buildings. So he's probably going to lose this one. He's already lost half of the cases for this building under technicality with compensation. But in my opinion, like this was and continues to be incredibly disruptive to everyone in this building. So there's tons of other like people trying to work at their 9 to 5 that are like less productive because they have this looming over their head. And I think it would be possible, like surely it should be possible for the tenant board to like look at these applications, because they sent in like 68 applications or something. They bought a building. The building was fine for years. They buy a building immediately within like a few months. They mass issue 60 something and 13 evictions for the same building, and they've done it in other buildings. The tenant board should be able to look at this and be like, I see a pattern here, and then like, dismiss it immediately, instead of having like, we've had 4 hearings, and there's even possibly talk about if it's not rejected at the 4th one, they might even hear more evidence at a 5th hearing. That'll be the 5th scheduled hearing, because the first one was canceled, but that still counts, because I still there was still a date on my calendar where I'm like, okay, I got to prepare for this. So I mean, stuff like that, and like, it's not even just the disruption for me, because me going to the tenant board, that's depriving landlords of the opportunity to go to the tenant board, because there's tons of landlords who are owed back rent by like complete deadbeat tenants who don't pay any rent, and are like the people that want like people that say it should be illegal to be a land. We should everyone go on a mass rent strike and stop paying rent, and like I don't agree with any of that stuff at all. And that's just one of the many things that are like so obvious to improve the situation that we just don't do. See, I missed some chats. Saving money to move out of Canada. It's ridiculous here. Yeah, it is kind of ridiculous. Heard about that Canadian bonds too. Yeah. Yeah, that could be the wild card. Everything follows from bonds. The debt market and yield curve controls everything. Okay, that might do what I want. Imagine if we lived in a world with no debt and interest. It's difficult to imagine a world like that. I mean, I think fundamentally capitalism works. It's on my to-do list, high up on my to-do list to do a video on this, but I think capitalism is like so fundamental that it's like almost an intrinsic physical property of systems. And I think like with the times we're going through right now, a lot of the problems we have, that people say this is the problem with capitalism, it's not actually capitalism, because in capitalism you have capital gets allocated to whatever produces the highest rate of return. And a lot of the stuff we are doing right now, there's a lot of capital that's not being allocated to stuff that produces a high rate of return. It's just going to nonsense. Alright, I got a problem with my bounds check now. Actually, why doesn't it catch that? $236. Would you believe ancient ancestors had more access to technology, more access to elements that they are not found on Earth? Just a wild question. Would you believe ancient ancestors had more access to technology? Access to elements not found on Earth? I don't know. Is there some evidence of that? That sounds like the topic of those old documentaries that was on the History Channel, about like the pyramids being built by aliens and stuff. I don't like the proud idea of property. Everyone gets assigned their slice of heaven. We're all animals. It's natural to demark territory and then enforce it. That I don't recognize the word proud. Proud idea of property. We could do both. Pierre Joseph Proudhon. Okay. I've been huffing sewage fumes all day, unfortunately. That is unfortunate. Hopefully you got paid a lot of money. But the state assigned land basically becomes a slum. Taxes and interest will force them to make it more productive. In our current society, yes, it doesn't have to be that way. We could have a debt jubilee of economic and social breakdown. Yeah, things are things are going to work through the system shortly or somehow. I think there's a lot of societal systems that are going to break down over the next while, and I don't really think it's going to be climactic. It's just going to be like in Detroit, how everything decays, and then all the abandoned houses get burned down, and then 20 years later, someone's like, "Hey, why is this land so cheap?" And then they buy it and build something. At home and at work. Apparently the hot weather is causing the wax plugs to melt. Okay. There's I guess wax plugs in sewage systems. That is that's not cool. Shouldn't have made them out of wax. It's this seal for toilets. Okay. So I guess it's where that like toilet connects to the floor or something. The wax feels horrid on ye hands. Fortunately, I've never had to touch it. Especially because of what it holds in, yeah. Fortunately, I've never had to deal with an experience like that. Put some wax in. Is it mineable in the game? For the moment, I'm going to focus on anything that has a cast number. I don't think there's a cast number for wax, because there's many types of wax, and it's a chemical thing, or a complicated organic chemical, I think. outhouse for the win. More like outhouse for the loss. I want one of those little backhoes, dig my own hole in the ground. I know we're above the water table. You can get one of those. You can make one of those on your own if you get all the permits, and I think they require a lot of, like, you got to get a bunch of loads of sand and stuff for them, and wouldn't hate to cause any problems. If you're in a rural area, it's a lot easier. Bretton Woods petrodollar. Not familiar with that. I was thinking about the pyramids because I found it funny when Dr. Zahi was saying synthetic aperture technology doesn't work on the pyramids. I've seen stuff related to Egypt and the pyramids trending a lot more lately. I don't recognize that name, but you see that, like, eccentric guy who always talks about the pyramids and is like making stuff up, and all right, that's wrong. How's the game going? Have you made much progress this month? Yes, I released a new version. So if you check the GitHub page, I need to make a new video to, like, talk about the new features, but if you click around at some of the, not this stream, but maybe some of the previous streams, if you want to see an example of what the map area looks like. So a consequence of some of the refactoring work I did was you can actually see a little bit more of the third dimension, so you can see some impression of the terrain that's under where you currently are. And I think that's a significant new feature in the game that substantially increases its playability. I had to add a bunch of optimizations to make it actually able to do that efficiently enough, and I also had a whole bunch of design flaws that were preventing me from adding that feature before. Tomorrow I will be preparing for my 4th of July barbecue. Excellent. this the opposite of what it's supposed to be? Brad first. All right, I expected that. All right, the test's passed. Nice. So that actually did find a bunch of like new things that had to be handled. Because now that I can represent zero size regions, there's a whole bunch of, it's a whole new class of error cases, divide by zeros and stuff. Now let's make sure it didn't break the entire game. All right, game still works. All right, there's still more conversion to do in that class. Robert, if you had a 4-player split screen and an Xbox gamepad controller support, I'll put it on my TV for my party. I don't think I'll have that done by this is a July 4th party. I don't think I'll have it done by then. I'm sure you can do it. I think if you make a fun mini game to see who can collect the most resources, a 5-minute period. I don't know, and it's quite ambitious. Eventually, I'll have. I mean, if I get around to it, I think one of the next major milestones I'll work toward is that there's still a few issues I want to fix with the display and the efficiency of it. And once I get those, then I may actually make a serious attempt for multiplayer support. Even if it's 4 instances at different worlds. I mean, you could, if you had four-player split screen. I mean, technically, you could just open up Tmux and open up four instances of it and specify 4 different world files. Wow. $69 US. That's incredible. That puts me over 100 tonight. Thank you very much to 5 for the $69 for day 69. That's the biggest super chat I've had in a while. Nice. enough for brats and mustard for the reviews. I don't know. I haven't necessarily agreed to do any additional food reviews. Although I am a bit more inclined to maybe try different types of like meat products. That calzone that was defective. Now that I've tried one, I probably won't get one in the future. Are you still in danger of homelessness? I would say no. Well, I mean, I'm still technically in danger of having an eviction order put against me. Having said that, so if you haven't seen the latest update is, I had my third hearing. So we had there's a February 29th, February 19th hearing, and then that got canceled. Then they pulled us into an earlier hearing on January 27th. It was a case management hearing, also known as an adjudicative case conference, where all the people in the building who got these eviction notices, there was all like 60-something people who got the same eviction notice in this building. They talked about whether they should combine the cases, and they agreed yes. And then we had the first merits hearing, May 26th. Then, so they called a bunch of witnesses who testified to it. You know, it's not saying it's not really that necessary, and to evict the tenants. And then the landlord also called some witnesses, which they didn't have very great solid witnesses. And then we ran out of time. And so of the 60 something people who got an N13 eviction notice, about half of those people, so like around 30 or something, just chose to leave the building. They're like, they don't want to deal with this nonsense. And then so there's still about like on the order of about 30 that were at the hearing. And about half of those, something like 15 or something people got their N13s dismissed on the basis of they were not properly served compensation checks by the landlord, because the landlord pulls a bunch of nonsense. So that basically the landlord already lost half the cases in this building on a technicality that we should not include my case. So we have at least one more hearing where we were about to hear another witness at the last hearing. We ran out of time and said, we'll do it next hearing. And I just, like a week ago, got the notification for the next hearing date. The next hearing date is October 6th. So until I'm still good to just live here until October 6th. And I have a feeling that the landlord is going to lose, because he's trying to do the exact same eviction stuff that he's doing here, in some cases with identical notices at other buildings. And I think he fully lost at the other ones. So the tide may be turning on his shenanigans. And technically, if I get an eviction order, I would never be like homeless. I can go stay with parents, and got some family and friends and stuff. So I'm not, there's people here who are in much worse shape than I am. And of course there's like thousands of people across Ontario who are even worse positions and don't have a platform to talk about it. Homelessness review when? I guess we'll see. We'll see how things develop. You're all in my prayers. Oh, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, hopefully it. I think that there's been enough attention on this case. I think like this specific rent eviction case is like one of the most egregious ones, and there's been a decent amount of attention put on it. So, although there's I don't know, lots of people in like city council and stuff seem to be dragging their feet on it. There's so many ways that this could be like if the government wanted to prevent this, they could. So basically, he overplayed his hand pretty badly. Yeah, I'd say so. Like I think their strategy was just like, hey, let's just make up some random. Let's just say like, oh, pipes are all bad. And I think they did it with some smaller buildings before. There was like, maybe 10 people there in total, and like nobody, that doesn't really get attention. But then he just like, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like comically evil. It's like you just start buying like successively, like buy an entire massive building where like hundreds of people live, and then just evict everyone. And eventually, if you do that enough, you will start to get attention. Happens all the time where I live. Yeah, I don't know. Is there? Well, I think in California, rent control laws are pretty really favor the tenant. I mean, technically, I'm not necessarily even that much in favor of like crazy strict, like social welfare type tenant laws. But I do think that like if we do have a law that's kind of unfair, like if there's a law in the books that's biased towards tenants, we should just obey the law. And if we don't like the law, we should change the law. But as part of the argument is just like, oh, we can't. Rent control is communism. Cool thing is in California, you can have a shell corp in Delaware, own everything, fully anonymous. The cool thing is you can reset the rent control timer if you simply sell it to a different shell corp. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, like as a macroeconomic thing, price controls do not work. But I mean, the thing is, I'm under rent control, but it's not a price fixed. It's pegged to like 2% or 2 point something percent or something. So the rent does go up every single year, and it goes up at a rate that is like what they tell us is inflation, which is like 2 point something percent, which is, our pension plans are based on that calculation, so should be reasonable. And I mean, honestly, like if they just change the annual percentage from like 2% to like 5% or something, it wouldn't even it would not that would not be disruptive to my life. I would not protest about it. I'd just be like, whatever. But the problem is that they peg the annual increase so low that it quickly becomes absurdly below market price in like a few years. Well, with our current out of control inflation, and then it becomes economic to break the rent control, which is hugely disruptive. Sure about DE. What does DE stand for here? Let us not think so much and do so much more. Yeah, that's easier said than done, though. It's easier to just think and provide opinions. Thinking is gay? I don't know if that's accurate. All right, we got a failed test case. Congratulations to Bradley for being a member for 14 months. Man, time flies. It's not okay how much time just flies by without consulting me first. Bradley sent 5 gifted memberships. Congratulations to John Doe, Twitch, Baba Booey, Eduardo, Victor Vaughn, David McGee, a bunch of people I never heard of. Yeah, it's interesting how many names there are that I've never seen those people chat at all. But I guess the YouTube algorithm has decided that those people really, really like the channel or have presumably watched the live stream. We got a failure. On 840. YouTube is trying to bait me into sending more gifted subs so the people I actually know are real. Yeah, maybe any kind of I mean the AI manipulation that platforms are capable of now must be like incredible. Like the advent of large language models, it just means that like they're basically capable of like higher order thinking. Like after live streaming all this time, I can't help but think that it would make like there's no possible way that they're not listening to literally everything that I say and just dumping it into like some kind of a context following thing, or like especially even just for moderation, like just to make sure you're not like if you're talking about something happening in the real world or something that needs to be like immediately directed to law enforcement. I'm sure that that's a feature that they have available. And if they can do that, think about how much they can manipulate you into like sending super chats and stuff. And even if they don't program it explicitly to do that, it'll just figure it out. It's like if you have like an employee that just follows all your commands. You say like, hey, figure out how to make more money. And then the employee just like, you forget to tell them like, oh yeah, you also have to obey the law. The employee would just be like, okay, I'll just go steal some car rims or something. And unless you explicitly instruct it to not do unethical things and like meticulously document what that is and how to follow those boundaries, it'll just like, it's like finding cracks in a dam or something. It'll just find some weakness and exploit it. Deep into a large multi-dollar deal. Middle finger up. Not sure what that means. Yeah, they've been doing that for a decade. It must be so good though now. If that's true, how come I still get the most useless ads ever for things that I never buy? So I can answer that actually. Part of the reason is for, as an advertiser, when you want to run a campaign, if you start advertising a product and you don't have any data, what you'll do is you'll set the advertising demographics to be as broad as possible. And this is especially, you'll see this if like some intern is doing the marketing targeting. So like, let's say you have a brand new product and you don't know if there's a product appeal more to men or women. You just like advertise to everyone, and then you let the campaign self-optimize, and eventually it will determine what subset of people actually like click and buy, and over time these campaigns have become more accurate by just trying to find like the global optima. So for example, it used to be you'd optimize for a number of clicks and click-through rate and engagement and stuff, but that's not actually a purchase. And there might be some people, like the people who actually buy the most might be people who are less likely to click. So to get the most global optima, you just like start by making no assumptions and advertise to like everyone, and then you can build enough empirical data from running your campaign. But it costs money. It costs a lot more money to advertise to people who don't want to see your content. But then after you have the empirical data, then your second campaign, you can just filter those people out because you've already proven that they don't click the ads and don't buy and so forth. Multiple whole dollars. USD end. To manipulate your feelings, to heighten your attention. The other 4/5 time to keep you engaged. Yeah, I mean, there might be some subtle manipulation stuff going on, but I think most like it's just a. And sometimes like companies are just stupid. Like they'll set the targeting like really, really bad. Like it's ultimately it's a human that specifies the targeting. All right, let's figure out why my intersection calculation's wrong. $840. I also noticed that YouTube app on my TV has been profiling me versus my mother due to our different skip ad times. Mother just lets them play while I sit down, skip down to the millisecond. Even though we're not logged in, it knows when it's me or my mom due to WAN IP. Yeah, I would imagine that at this point it's probably like the profile detection is probably abstracted in like the most optimal degree possible. Like every possible data point is just like one element in a vector. And then you just let the AI figure out, which is the most relevant based on empirical behavior. So Robert, you can never be above going for blood if you're going to dominate. I'll keep that in mind, but I'll try to be as nice as possible. Fingerprinting's nuts now. Yeah, like it's probably so good it's not even like there's probably no human. It's probably not even like picked by a human. It's just like some engineer. Like there's probably just like an abstract interface that you implement for like submit data point, and there's like 300 different data points, and you submit all of them, including ones that are known to be not relevant, but you just submit them all anyway, and let the AI figure out which data points are actually useful or not. Or would you just delegate that to psychopaths like me? Oh, we don't need to be psychopaths. We can just be nice. What's the point of taking over the world if you're just gonna replace one broken system with another? Robert proceeds to judge my inherent mental behavior. Well, if I'm gonna be gonna take over the world, I gotta be judging people's behavior all the time. He went for metaphorical psychological blood. I don't know, it sounds almost like nonsense. Now, I need to figure out why this doesn't work. 0 to 1. Empirical intersection is this. Oh, that means that this is calculated wrong. Now, how is that calculated? Aha. That's the problem. It is day 69. Yes, it is indeed. Many people have been highly anticipating this day. Excuse my exhaustive use of metaphorical, theoretical, psychological, hypothetical, emotional, word, semantic, meaning manipulation. You are excused. Oh, nice. We got another super chat. Thank you for the $10 from Game Dev Chat. So we're now up to 117. I guess day 69 really is a day for celebration. We got 5 new channel members and 117 super chats. Yeah, that's not very good. Empirical intersection was null, and obtained was this. $834. Now imagine you were coding from a kiddie pool, so many more super chats. I don't know, this is that's part of the downward spiral though. There's no way out. No way out by thinking. Only by action. Oh yeah, I forgot. I gotta figure out what to do for this case. So the fact that you can have zero-sized zero-sized regions now means the intersection would be ambiguous. So 0 to 0. Check out the book, Might is Right, Survival of the Fittest. Thoughts on NeoVim. I tried it once for 30 seconds, and I have not tried it again. It's on my to-do list. I have so my current schedule for the past. Where does all my time go? For the first 60 days of the series, I was working on other renovation stuff, some videos. For the last 10 days, for the last, I think day 60 to day 67 or so, during my days, I worked on taxes. Then I did this in the evening. And I guess from day 45 to 50, I was working every day on trying to get the next release of the game out. Finished work on taxes a few days ago. The last couple days, I filmed a new video. And next on my to-do list, people have been asking me about trying AI tools. So I plan to actually give a test out to some of the Claude AI. I'm gonna give an actual attempt at some of those tools, and then I guess NeoVim it's still on the to-do list to try out, but still haven't gone there. Don't forget about Calzone review. Oh yeah, that was another thing. Jimmy J sends $9.99. Thank you very much. This is turning out to be a very, very successful stream. Listen, look out. Juicy, listen, I'm going you dive deep. Surely the might of King Arthur will correct the speech to text, no trust it. I'm trying to make sense of that. Life Sword. I don't know what that means, and I don't think I want to know. Just wait until day 420. Oh yeah, that'll be another event to behold. Don't make sense of it. All right, I won't. All right, this brings me to a thought. So, in the case we got another super chat. Jamie Kawa. Unfortunately, it doesn't show me the whole name. MVN test is his favorite Linux command. Yeah, I wish I had more time to do more of the Linux shorts. There's a lot more I'd like to do, but they don't bring in a lot of revenue. But the super chats help to supplement that. Thank you very much. We're at 137. Nice. Let's see. Let me commit here. Let's make sure I didn't break anything. They could rebuild $6 million man, but this dream is 6 million plus 1. I'm not sure what to make of that, but I like that sentiment. No, H9's favorite command is QEMU NBD. I know what QEMU is, but QEMU NBD, no big deal. All right, the game still works. His favorite command. Network block device. I don't think I've ever actually used QEMU. I think I maybe tried it out once. That was it. Favorite command is log off. I don't think I have a log off one. I have a log out. So we got 2 failures. 710. I got a whole 1x VM running in QEMU. QEMU KVM a few minutes ago. Something wrong with Mulvad. WireGuard config. So Robert, tell us to shut up like a boss. Put us to work. At this point, there's been no necessity to tell anyone to shut up. But putting you to work, I guess that's a different question. I don't know. I guess it depends what you guys want to do. I think the best way to allocate people to tasks is to learn about their expertise and figure out what they want to work on. Get back to twerk chat. Twerk chat. That sounds inappropriate. All right, we got some failures in this. I will literally write a bash 4.4 if statement. If that's what you want to do, then you can do that. So the current task let's check that. 724. What now? Task complete. I wanted to ask again about studying math formulas. How do you know what is important for coding and what isn't, and how to balance that out? Or is it better to say all of it is, you have to lock down everything? Oh, I think it was you asked the question about memorizing mathematical formulas. See, do you know what is important for coding? Honestly, I would say like for for studying math formulas. So are you a high school student by any chance, or it would maybe help to know a bit more about like where you are in life and what kinds of math formulas you're studying for, and what kind of code you're writing. And I guess how much exposure you've had to professional mathematics. Because if you've, like a lot of, when I think about math formulas, I think about a lot of like university level math, like calculus and stuff. And for most, for probably like most of the software that people are writing out there, like web apps and stuff, you're never ever going to use like, calculus formulas and stuff like that. But it depends what you're doing. So if you work in, like if you're doing finite pharmacology, stop right now. Just to lock down math. I have experience with calculus 1. I would say if you're trying to prepare yourself for coding, I think you said, is it better to say all of it is, and you have to lock down everything? Locking down everything is not, it's not possible. There's an infinite number of math things that you could lock down. I would say you probably want to start more with like, what are you coding, or what do you plan to be coding? So if you plan to do like finite element analysis software for like simulating, engineering calculations for like, safety. If you want to do a accident simulation and stuff like that, or you're working for like NASA and you're like simulating the airflow over the airframe of a high performance aircraft or turbine blade or something like that. If you're coding that, you're definitely going to learn calculus. You're going to have to learn all the physical stuff related to whatever that is. But if you just get a job like the jobs I had at like Amazon, there was very little mathematics, like calculus related mathematics. There was more. I would say of the small amount of math that like pure math we did, there's a bit more like combinatorics and stuff. Orthodox NPC. You mentioned before. Where do you say this is still in there? Like I said, you said before to tell people to shut up. I do see quite a few chats from you. They're kind of spamming the chat, so I would say you're fine, but just maybe chat 50% fewer chats. I can't really there's not really a lot of specific coherent thoughts in what I see you're writing there. What about for 3D game dev stuff with C++? I would say if you're doing 3D game dev, you definitely want to learn linear algebra. So stuff like absolutely like the sines and cosines, sines and cosines, that's important, but even more important is the like the matrix calculations that you do to like translate rotate points. And there would be, stuff like calculations, like calculations of determinants, and and a lot of that kind of stuff. Honestly, linear algebra is one of those things it can actually be quite difficult to get build an intuition of it. Interestingly, there's even been like some novel algorithms discovered, and like lots of novel things discovered about like things like eigenvalues, and I'm not even that super well versed on eigenvalues myself. I never actually did much 3D programming. In university, we had the choice between 3 really difficult courses. There was the compilers course, graphics, and real-time operating systems. I chose the real-time operating systems. And I had actually done another course on compilers, so, but I never really did a lot of 3D graphics programming. But yeah, I would say for in terms of memorizing math formulas, I think it just makes sense to I'd say try to focus a bit on just developing a bit more intuition for like how to derive the formulas. Because people always criticize and say, like, you should not memorize, you should seek to understand. Having said that, though, I actually think memorization is almost like it's one of the first steps toward, like, if it's something so confusing, you find it really hard to develop a deeper understanding. I find it helps me, at least, to just memorize it. And then once you've memorized it, you can think about it. It's actually in your brain. But if you can't even memorize the literal symbols, it's it's hard to even reason about. Recommend the book Linear Algebra Done Right. Yeah, there's lots of books out there, lots of YouTube videos and stuff too. Quaternion math is total black magic. Tried it once and had to tell myself after 2 months. I think it's Quaternion math is not absolutely necessary. It's just like an alternative for representing imaginary numbers, if I remember correctly. I don't think I actually even know quaternions that well. I find for complex numbers, I find it complex numbers and I and all that kind of stuff actually makes a bit more sense to me, and it's actually kind of intuitive when you think about it in terms of the unit circle and like the nth roots of unity. Although that the whole the rabbit hole of like complex numbers is actually it's honestly really amazing. I wish I had more lifetime to like explore the math behind it, of like Laplace transforms and Fourier transforms, and there's a lot of super deep stuff there. What you can do with quaternions, you can't with matrices, is easily interpretable between two orientations. Yeah, I would say you mentioned for like matrix math for 3D programming. I think probably a lot of game devs after a while probably they kind of just look up some of the matrices. Like I know there's you could just probably Google like rotation matrice for doing this or that. I think it's probably one of those things you like implement it once in your program and probably don't think about it a lot after that. For each cycle, CPU cycle changes variables by this percent, dependent on the percentage down the animation or something. Yeah, I never got into quaternions myself. Thank you, Sir Robert. You're welcome. I'm not sure what I did. For time to stream. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm going over a bit tonight. I'll probably finish up soon. Matrix multiplication is also above my pay grade. Picks the public education is garbage. Robert, you are a champion. Wow, you guys are giving me a really swelled head. The random region is this, so that means this year has 0 width. You know what? I guess I'm gonna have to think about given that I can represent 0-sized regions. I have some like conventions I'm gonna have to think about for this, for these like intersection calculation functions. I guess I probably shouldn't have. I suppose I should probably have two different types of return values from this. So if I do an intersection between two regions and they have a point in common, then I can maybe return the point and another 0-sized region. But if they have no points in common, then I'll return null. And that way I can separate those two cases. Also, I bought Axel Heiberg. You can't have it. No, that's not true. I claim it as my own. Tomorrow, the leash states you have to keep your pets on leash, but don't specify that you have to be holding the leash. Ah, you found a hack, an exploit. Heading to bed. Everyone have a great one. Have a good night. Yeah, I think I'll call it a night as well. 0 times 0 is actually worth of a stand-up shoutout. 0 times 0 is actually worth of a stand-up shoutout. Interesting. I don't know what you're trying to convey by that, but I just really didn't have like how fast college went with calculus and Japanese. Took both at the same time. Was blasted, just grinding a bit on my own. Also reviewing geometry a little. Yeah, I found my experience was everything is so condensed. Like in university when we studied Fourier transforms, like when I actually sat down and I thought about like how much actual physical time we had in class learning it, it was like 6 hours or like 6 lectures or something. And there's like the last 10 minutes of classes not there, so it's like technically a bit less than 6 hours, and that is absolutely not enough time to learn the concept. If you just like after I ended up writing some code, some like signal processing code and stuff, it took me a long time to like intuitively understand it, and I did like actually write out some of the stuff. So I mean, if you take a course on one of these things and you don't understand it afterward, don't feel stupid, because it's more than likely it's just the education system is getting worse and worse at all levels. Stand up is a corporate wagey thing. Okay, I know what you mean by stand up, but zero times 0 is actually worth of a stand-up shoutout. I still don't really understand how 0 times 0 is related to stand-up. I don't know. We'll have to leave it there for tonight. Been exploiting ChatGPT to my personal free tutor. Excellent. Well, on that note, I think I'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you everyone for the very generous super chats. This was a very successful stream. Got $137 Canadian and 5 new channel members. Thanks, Robert. Hope things go well. Good luck with world domination. Polar bears are better than penguins. You never gave a shout out of success in your stand-up? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but anyway, I'll leave it there for tonight, and I guess we'll be back tomorrow. Later.